On my wedding anniversary, my son gave me a bottle of perfume, but the next morning, my housekeeper was rushed to the emergency room for skin poisoning. On the wedding anniversary of my late husband and me, my son, Leo, and his wife, Chloe, drove to visit me at the Le Chêne Bleu Villa. They didn't come empty-handed. Chloe, with her perpetual radiant smile, ceremoniously handed me an exquisitely wrapped box. "Happy anniversary, Mother," Leo said, hugging me tightly. Inside was a magnificent bottle of perfume. The crystal bottle was designed in the shape of a blooming flower bud. The label on the bottle was inscribed with golden letters that read, "Souffle de printemps," breath of spring. "It's a limited edition, Mother," Chloe explained, her voice full of pride. "We had to order it months in advance. I thought its delicate scent would suit you perfectly." Their words were full of love and thoughtfulness. I was truly touched. In the lonely months since my husband's passing, small gestures of care like this meant so much. I held the perfume bottle, feeling the cool crystal in my palm. "Thank you so much, my dears," I said. "It's beautiful. I'll use it tonight." I carefully placed the perfume bottle in a place of honor on my bedroom vanity. I had plans to attend a classical concert that evening, and I thought it would be the perfect occasion to try this special gift. That evening, after choosing my evening gown, I sat down at my vanity. My hand was just reaching for the Souffle de Printemps bottle when the phone rang. It was a call from an old friend from Paris whom I hadn't spoken to in a long time. The conversation lasted longer than I had anticipated. When I hung up, I realized with a start that I was almost late. In my rush, I no longer had time to leisurely enjoy a new scent. Out of habit, I grabbed the familiar rose perfume I had used for decades and quickly sprayed it a few times on my neck and wrists. "I'll save that special perfume for another occasion, one where I have more time," I told myself. After that, I hastily grabbed my wallet and left the house. I had no idea that while I was out, my loyal housekeeper, Juliet, had entered the bedroom to clean. She had worked for our family for over 20 years, a woman who was honest and trustworthy. When she saw the magnificent perfume bottle on the vanity, she couldn't resist her curiosity. She picked it up, examined it, and then, perhaps in a moment of weakness, secretly sprayed a little on her wrist to smell it. The next morning, I woke up and the coffee wasn't brewed as usual. The house was unusually silent. Feeling that something was wrong, I went and knocked on Juliet's door. There was no answer. When I pushed the door open and stepped in, a horrifying sight met my eyes. Juliet was lying sprawled on the floor, unconscious. Her skin was pale, her lips were blue, and her breathing was very weak. I quickly called for an ambulance. At the hospital, Juliet was taken straight to the intensive care unit in critical condition. The doctors were puzzled by her strange symptoms. They didn't resemble any common stroke or heart attack. A few hours later, the chief physician came to see me in the waiting room. His expression was grave. "Madam," he said, his voice low, "we have the blood test results. Miss Juliet did not have a stroke. She was poisoned." I was stunned. Poisoned? But what did she eat? "The problem is, it wasn't through the digestive tract," the doctor explained. "This is an extremely potent plant-based toxin that can be absorbed very quickly through the skin. A very small dose is enough to cause respiratory failure and damage to the nervous system. We are doing everything we can, but her condition is very critical. A toxin absorbed through the skin." The doctor's words kept replaying in my head, but I still couldn't understand. It wasn't until late that evening that Juliet regained consciousness for a moment. I sat by her bed, holding her cold hand. She looked at me, her weak eyes filled with remorse. "Madam, I'm sorry," she whispered, her breath ragged. I was just curious. The new perfume. I tried a little." She didn't finish her sentence, but I no longer heard anything else. The perfume bottle. The initial shock quickly passed, giving way to a cold calmness. I was not a woman to be undone by fear. I had lived long enough to know that when faced with a venomous snake, the worst thing you can do is panic. The very next day, I secretly drove to the office of Lawyer Moreau, my friend and the trusted legal advisor for my family. I told him everything, from the gift, the unexpected phone call, to Juliet's condition and the doctor's conclusion. "Mr. Moreau listened, his usually calm face becoming tense. "We must act immediately," he said, "but we must act in silence, and we need irrefutable evidence." We hatched a plan. The Soufflé de Printemps perfume bottle was carefully sealed and secretly sent to a private forensic laboratory in Lyon. At the same time, following Mr. Moreau's advice, I installed an automatic recording software for all incoming calls on my phone. Every word they said would now become evidence. And then, just as I had anticipated, they began to call. The first call came from Chloe, her voice full of feigned concern. "Mother, I heard about Miss Juliet. It's terrible. How is she?" After I briefly updated her on the situation, she moved on to the main question, trying to sound casual. "Oh, by the way, have you tried the perfume we gave you? I'm sure you must love it, right?" And that's when my performance began. I sighed into the phone, my voice weary and pained. "Oh, Chloe, how can I be in the mood when Juliet is still in the hospital? I've just left it on my vanity." A week later, it was Leo's turn. After some empty words about my health, he asked the same question. "Mother, have you used that perfume yet?" Chloe put so much effort into choosing it. "I know, my son," I replied, my voice weak. "But I want to wait for a beautiful sunny day. A day when I'm in a slightly better mood, to truly enjoy it. You know, a special fragrance needs a special moment." I always came up with very ordinary, very logical reasons for the delay, and after each call, I saved the audio file to an encrypted folder. Listening to their voices again, I could feel their growing impatience, clumsily hidden beneath their words of concern. Their only concern was whether the poison had been used yet. Each audio file was a link, and the trap I was setting was slowly tightening around the predators. The impatience in their voices became more and more evident with each call. They no longer had the patience to beat around the bush. "Mother, why don't you just try a little?" "Just a little bit," Leo pleaded in one call. "How about I come over this weekend to help you clean your vanity?" Chloe suggested in another, a proposal that held a hidden threat. While I continued to play the role of a distressed and procrastinating old woman, Lawyer Moreau and I worked tirelessly. We acted quickly and silently, like ghosts. The forensic analysis results from Lyon came back. The perfume bottle contained a concentrated dose of daffodil extract, narcissus, an extremely potent toxin that can be fatal when absorbed through the skin, matching Juliet's test results perfectly. That report was sealed and carefully stored. Next, we dealt with the most important issue, the assets. My entire will was revised. The Le Chien Bleu Villa, the investments, the art collection, everything would no longer belong to Leo. Instead, they would be transferred to an art fund named after my late husband and me, a fund established to sponsor young artists. To ensure Leo and Chloe couldn't interfere, Mr. Moreau established a complex, almost unbreakable trust system. My legacy would be protected and would never fall into the hands of murderers. And then, we launched the first strike. An official letter from the bank was sent to Leo. The letter didn't mention the poisoning plot. It simply and coldly informed him of the asset restructuring of my estate. It stated that his inheritance rights to the main assets had been revoked and replaced by a charitable fund. I wasn't there when Leo received the letter, but I could imagine the scene, the confusion, the anger, and then the horror as he realized the true meaning. The poisoning plot had failed. And worse, his mother knew. The play of an innocent old woman had ended. The real war had begun. The impatience in their voices became more and more evident with each call. They no longer had the patience to beat around the bush. "Mother, why don't you just try a little?" "Just a little bit," Leo pleaded in one call. "How about I come over this weekend to help you clean your vanity?" Chloe suggested in another, a proposal that held a hidden threat. I saved all the audio files, feeling the trap I was setting slowly tighten. While I continued to play the role of a distressed and procrastinating old woman, Lawyer Moreau and I worked tirelessly. We acted quickly and silently, like ghosts. The forensic analysis results from Lyon came back. The perfume bottle contained a concentrated dose of daffodil extract, narcissus, an extremely potent toxin that can be fatal when absorbed through the skin, matching Juliet's test results perfectly. That report was sealed and carefully stored. Next, we dealt with the most important issue, the assets. My entire will was revised. The Le Chêne Bleu Villa, the investments, the art collection, everything would no longer belong to Leo. Instead, they would be transferred to an art fund named after my late husband and me, a fund established to sponsor young artists. To ensure Leo and Chloe couldn't interfere, Mr. Moreau established a complex, almost unbreakable trust system. My legacy would be protected and would never fall into the hands of murderers. And then, we launched the first strike. An official letter from the bank was sent to Leo. The letter didn't mention the poisoning plot. It simply and coldly informed him of the asset restructuring of my estate. It stated that his inheritance rights to the main assets had been revoked and replaced by a charitable fund. I wasn't there when Leo received the letter, but I could imagine the scene. The confusion, the anger. And then the horror as he realized the true meaning. The poisoning plot had failed. And worse, his mother knew. The play of an innocent old woman had ended. The real war had begun. Their reaction was faster than I thought. Cornered, facing the loss of their entire fortune, Leo and Chloe acted with a frantic desperation. A few days later, I received a court summons. My son and daughter-in-law had filed a petition for guardianship over me. The reason they gave: I was showing signs of senile dementia, paranoia, and was no longer competent to manage my assets. They claimed that my decision to change the will was the clearest evidence of my mental instability. They had turned the tables, transforming me from a potential victim into a doddering old woman in need of protection. At the hearing, the atmosphere was suffocatingly tense. Their lawyer, a smooth and cunning individual, began by painting a picture full of pity. He described Leo and Chloe as filial children, only trying to protect their frail old mother from making poor decisions. And then, he launched his weapon. He presented a book of poetry I had published years ago. They were poems I wrote after my husband's death, full of somber images, longing, and loneliness. "Your Honor," he said, his voice dramatic, "these are the words of a soul sinking into darkness, a person who can no longer distinguish between reality and illusion. Can we entrust an entire fortune to someone with such paranoid thoughts?" It was a malicious attack, turning my very soul and art into a weapon against me. Leo sat there, not daring to look at me, while Chloe dabbed at her crocodile tears. But they had underestimated me. The failure in court drove them to desperation. Their legal plan to seize the assets had collapsed, and they knew I suspected them. So, they switched to Plan B, a more ruthless and direct approach. They started by building a foundation of falsehoods. Chloe, through her connections, bribed a doctor to create a fake medical file for me. The record stated that the mild heart condition I had long suffered from was suddenly worsening, and that I needed to take a new, stronger medication. At the same time, they found their ultimate weapon, a poison derived from the oleander plant, a toxin that, in small doses, can cause gradual heart failure, creating a death that looks natural due to an underlying condition. I didn't know their specific plan, but I knew they wouldn't give up, and I wouldn't sit around and wait. I decided to set another trap, one that would expose their desperation and greed. I called Mrs. Dubois, a mutual family friend and a gossip. During our conversation, I accidentally revealed that while cleaning out old things, I had found a box of my husband's love letters. I added, my voice full of mystery, that in those letters, he mentioned a secret hiding place, which might be a Swiss bank account I had never known about. The bait was cast. And just as I predicted, the fish took the hook. A few days later, the security system I had installed throughout the house sent an alert to my phone at midnight. I opened the video feed to watch. It was Leo. He had used a spare key to sneak into the house, thinking I was fast asleep. The video recorded him going straight to the library, where my husband used to work, and beginning to frantically rummage. Every drawer, every book was turned upside down. His face was no longer that of a son, but of a thief desperately searching for treasure. He came back every night, and his desperation grew with each visit. I saved all the video clips. Just then, I received a call from Juliet. She had recovered and been discharged from the hospital, temporarily staying with relatives. "Madam," her voice trembled, "I must tell you this. Before the incident, Miss Chloe asked me many questions. She asked about your daily habits, the type of tea you often drank, and she asked very detailed questions about the heart medication you take every night." The last piece of the puzzle fell into place. My love letters had driven them insane, and now they wanted to rush their plan. They were about to make their move, and I was ready to welcome them. After Juliet's call, I immediately contacted lawyer Moreau, and this time, we went to the police. I presented everything: the forensic report on the perfume bottle, Juliet's testimony, the audio recordings of Leo and Chloe's urging calls, and the videos of Leo secretly rummaging through my library every night. Faced with a chain of evidence showing a systematic conspiracy, the police agreed to cooperate. The final trap was set, this time under the supervision of the law. The police secretly installed additional cameras and tiny recording devices in the hidden corners of my living room. Everything was ready. Just as I had anticipated, Leo called the next day. "Mother," he said, his voice full of concern, "I've talked to your new doctor. He said you need to take a new, better heart medication. I'll bring it over this afternoon." That afternoon, he came alone. He sat across from me, placing a new bottle of pills on the table. "Here, Mother. You should take a pill right away." I looked at him, the son I had given birth to. His eyes tried to show concern, but I could see the tension and a cold gaze behind them. "Thank you, my son," I said, my hand trembling, this time for real. I opened the bottle, took out a small white pill. He was staring at me intently, without blinking, waiting. I slowly brought the pill close to my mouth, and just as the pill was about to touch my lips, I suddenly had a violent coughing fit, a sputtering, convulsive cough. I dropped the pill onto the marble-tiled floor, and it bounced with a dry clink. That was the signal. The living room door burst open. 2 plainclothes police officers rushed in. "Freeze! Police!" Leo jumped up, his face contorted with ultimate horror. He looked at me, then at the pill on the floor, then at the police officers. He understood everything. Another officer carefully used tweezers to pick up the pill from the floor and put it into a sealed evidence bag. Irrefutable evidence. Leo was arrested on the spot. Chloe, as an accomplice who provided the fake medical file, was also arrested at her home shortly after. The trial was like a play whose ending I already knew. All the evidence was presented systematically. The analysis results of the poison in the perfume bottle, Juliet's testimony, the audio files of Leo and Chloe's urging calls, the videos of Leo desperately rummaging through the library, and finally, the clear video footage of my own son's act of switching the medication. Leo and Chloe's plot was completely exposed to the light of justice. They had no words left to defend themselves. They were sentenced to long prison terms for conspiracy to murder. After the trial, I knew I could no longer stay at Le Chien Bleu. The villa, once filled with happy memories, was now stained with betrayal and a deadly plot. I decided to sell it, to completely shake off the ghost of the past. I moved to Paris, to a penthouse apartment with a balcony overlooking the ancient rooftops of the Le Marais neighborhood. I no longer needed a vast space. Instead, I used most of my assets to fulfill a dream I had long harbored. I bought an old bookstore, renovated it into a cozy and elegant space, and established a literary salon, a place for young writers and poets to meet, share, and create. I became a patron for talents who might never have had the opportunity without a little help. One autumn evening in Paris, my literary salon was packed, the air warm and filled with the soft sounds of laughter. Young faces, full of passion and enthusiasm, were gathered, listening. Juliet, my loyal companion, was smiling at the back, holding a tray of wine. I stood on a small wooden stage, no longer the owner of an empty villa, but the center of a vibrant community. The golden light shone down on the page in my hand. I cleared my throat and began to read my new poem, a poem about rebirth, about finding spring after a long, cold winter. When I finished the last verse, a warm round of applause erupted. I looked out at the faces turned towards me, their eyes shining with admiration and hope. A serene, genuine smile spread across my lips. I had overcome the tragedy. I had turned the poison of betrayal into a healing remedy for myself and for others. My legacy would no longer be cold stone walls, but the verses, the stories, the talents that would continue to shine. And in that moment, among kindred spirits, I had found a new meaning, a true peace.